All right, welcome back to Pan Am Football with Max Dean. Today we are going to be doing another viewer-requested video on the topic of the New England Patriots salary cap. So before I get started, I want to give a quick shout-out to overthecap.com as well as spottrack.com, where I get all of my numbers here for these videos. And a thank you to Daniel Crane as well for the request. He asked, at some point Bill Belichick commented on the fact that the New England Patriots salary cap issues were at the root of their struggles this year. And that's probably true to some degree, but it was also confusing to a lot of people because they actually have a lot of salary cap space this year. And we'll talk about that little salary cap roller coaster that they went on here in just a moment. But if you like what you see, throw me a like. It does help quite a bit. And subscribe if you want to see more videos like this revolving around the NFL salary cap and the player contracts. If you have a request for any particular player or topic, just let me know in the comments. And during this offseason, I should have time to get to everything. So let's jump into the New England Patriots. So we're going to be looking at the major transactions for the Patriots over this past year and a half or so. And although they have cap space now, it was not always that way. And it's kind of interesting how they got to where they are. First thing is the dead money of the various veteran players as well as the Tom Brady situation. Okay, so first things first, let's go there. The first player we have to look at is Tom Brady, who had a $13.5 million dead money cap hit for this year. His contract voided in 2020. That money was paid to him previously in bonuses and pushed off to the future to basically keep their salary cap under control in previous years. And they were able to compete for quite a few championships. Probably it was all worth it in the long run. However, because Tom Brady did not really make a decision about what he wanted to do going into the 2020 year, they didn't make a lot of other moves until they were kind of waiting to see what happened with him. They probably could have preempted a little bit of the issues they faced if they had a clear picture of what was going on with him, but such is life. I don't really know about all of the personal details between Brady and the Patriots organization. You can ask somebody about storylines if that's something you want to know about. But in terms of financials, that's what you're looking at. His contract was intended to void. It was the way that the contract was written, and it only would have avoided that. It only would have avoided being voided if he signed an extension prior to the void, which did not happen. We also had Antonio Brown making $4.75 million, or costing $4.75 million against the salary cap as dead money in 2020. He was cut in September 2019 after playing, I believe, only one game for the Patriots. He signed a contract with them after being released from the Raiders. Because they guaranteed him some money, after releasing him, they had already paid him some and they owed him some, and it was kind of a messy situation. All in all, this is what ended up being against their salary cap, even though he was gone. Stephen Gostkowski was cut in March 2020 around free agency time. Michael Bennett was traded in October of 2019, and Duron Harmon was traded in March of 2020, again around free agency time. So all of these players have a fairly substantial dead money hit. There were a few others that were all under $1 million, so I didn't really include them here, but that totals around $24.7 million just in dead cap space, which is fairly significant, especially when you don't have a quarterback on your roster. It hamstrings you. Going into free agency and the draft, they didn't have a lot to work with in terms of cap space, and once it was all said and done, they had around $263,000 in available cap space. That is not very much. It's actually not even enough to get through a year with. You have, incidental costs. You have to sign players from the practice squad. You have to cut players. There are just a variety of things that have to happen over the course of a year, and that's not even enough. So one of the first steps they took was the restructure of Rex Burkhead's contract. Although it was a restructure, it was really more of a pay cut. It's the last year of his deal, and basically he took less money in order to guarantee that he would stay on the roster. That ended up saving the Patriots $981,000 approximately. So that got them over $1 million in cap space. Then we got to the grievances. So there were two major grievances that the Patriots were involved in as far as salary cap figures go in the year 2020. The first one was Antonio Brown. So he was signed in September and then cut in September, and because of the number of guarantees in his contract, they had to basically go after the money that they had already paid him and were obligated to pay him by basically saying you violated your part of the contract by behaving in such and such a way. After they had already sold Cam Newton on the idea that they didn't have any money, but he could come and play for them and boost his value for a very low price, almost immediately thereafter they ended up winning some of these grievances, and they received $4 million back against the cap for Antonio Brown, and they received back $2.55 million back for Aaron Hernandez, who had basically been arrested and gone to jail about a year after signing a major extension with the New England Patriots. I think they got some back at that time, but they ended up getting $2.55 million back against the cap after a dispute with his estate right around the same time as the Antonio Brown money came back in. So almost immediately they got $6.55 million back against the salary cap. So at this point you see the money is starting to pour back in, and then something relatively unexpected happened. A bunch of high-profile players for the New England Patriots opted out and took advantage of the COVID-19 opt-out clauses. Now, basically the way that those work, probably a lot of people are relatively familiar with at this point, but basically your entire cap hit is just removed from the salary cap, and your entire contract is just pushed back a year. Since some of those players were pretty high-profile, including Dante Hightower, Marcus Cannon, Patrick Chung, it was a pretty substantial amount of money that they got back. I believe it was in the realm of $33 million. And just looking at these numbers, that should be fairly accurate. So this was not something that I think the Patriots expected at all whatsoever. And so when Bill Belichick says that they had salary cap issues, all of this money came in back to the team at a time when it was much too late to make any kind of real moves, in terms of signing new players or trying to make a trade. Plus, with the uncertainty with the salary cap for the 2021 year, with all of these players scheduled to return, they couldn't really add players, without knowing what was going to happen with that. So the Patriots have plenty of cap space going forward. They don't really need to do anything per se, to get a healthy salary cap. They have quite a bit. As it stands, almost $30 million in space, and that's for 2020, which means all of that is rolling over into the 2021 salary cap as well. So they really don't have anything to concern themselves with as far as that goes. Now, they do need a quarterback desperately, but that's kind of besides the point. But it's just an interesting... no team in the NFL had a more whiplash salary cap situation than the New England Patriots did. They had the least in the league at one point, and then nearly the most in the league only a few months later. And basically, it didn't even involve signing or cutting any players. It's an interesting topic, and we'll look at what they do going forward. We'll make videos about all the teams as they make free agent acquisitions and such. But this particular video was just about 2020 and how they got to where they are. So, Daniel Crane, I hope that answered your question. And if you have any other questions revolving this, just ask in the comments. If I get a bunch of questions about this topic, I might make a short video on it. Or if it's just a few questions, most likely I'll just answer in the comments. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you all soon.